Hello, I'm your features editor, Marcus Campbell from the MesaCC Legend, here to do a quick Legend review of How to Train Your Dragon 3 from DreamWorks Animation. So How to Train Your Dragon 3 came out in February 22nd and made $52 million in its opening weekend. It was the highest grossing animated film of the weekend and one of the highest grossing animated films of the year. It's a highly anticipated film, one of Fandango's most anticipated films of the year after a recent survey. I think it was number 2 or 3. It sees the return of director and writer Dean Dublas, who also did Lilo and Stitch before jumping onto the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. It also sees the return of Jay Baruchel as Hiccup and America Ferrera as Astrid. It also has the introduction of F. Murray Abraham as Grimmel, who's a creepy, awesome dragon hunter character that appears throughout the movie. It's the last leg of the journey for Hiccup and the final film in the trilogy, and it wraps everything up really well with a really nice little bow, and I'll get to the ending later. But right now, first I want to talk about the parallels between Toothless's journey and Hiccup's journey, which really anchors this whole film, especially in the B story as it moves forward. Watching Toothless, the Night Fury, meet the female Toothless, the Light Fury, see what they did there, is really, it's excellent, and especially when it's juxtaposed against Hiccup's growth into his role as king of this village and leader of this village, and him eventually having to propose to Astrid, whose romantic interests were laid down in the first film and then kind of hammered home in the second. And then with the passing of Hiccup's father and him having to step into that leadership role, those things are kind of exacerbated in this film. You know, he kind of gets teased about marriage and things like that along the film. And Hiccup's inability to deal with the feelings he has for Astrid and if he wants to marry her is interesting when you pair it with and compare it to Toothless's experiences trying to woo the female Light Fury, which is really interesting because obviously Toothless has no other Night Furies in the wild because they've been hunted, as we learn, to extinction by Grimmel, F. Murray Abraham's character. So Toothless has no experience in mating, so it's interesting to see Toothless kind of replicate the mating rituals of other dragons as he tries to woo this female Light Fury. It's kind of fun. As the film progresses, of course, we see the Vikings leave their ancestral home and kind of go in search of this hidden world that exists off the end. It's got some fun flat earther parallels tied in with, of course, the Norse mythology that includes the flat Earth. So it's kind of interesting to see that kind of play out. I thought it was amusing. It's a great movie for your kids. When compared to Toy Story 3 or other trilogy-ending films, even Shrek the Third, this one's measurably less sad, and it ends on a very hopeful note for both characters. We actually get to come back and see them again in a very Harry Potter fashion. It reminded me a lot. It was very reminiscent of the finales of Harry Potter, where we get 2 endings rather than just the one. And the second ending makes the film feel far more gratifying with it than without it. I would also like to make note, in this film, the animation is above and beyond the other 2 films, especially in terms of when we do get to see the hidden world. The lights and colors that refract through that are excellent, and it's a wonderful to watch, and it's a joy to watch. Also, some of the intimate moments between Hiccup and Toothless that have never quite had to have been captured before are captured very, very well here. Especially in that final scene, or especially in those final 2 scenes. And in a few of the scenes in between where Hiccup and Toothless are having to interact with each other with the Night Fury, which also has these Romeo and Juliet vibes with it, with shouting cues up onto the balcony and things like that, getting help from your friends. So it's a really great movie. The last thing I wanted to touch on is T.J. Miller is not in this movie. He's actually been replaced as one of the 2 twins. You barely notice it in the film as you're watching. I didn't notice myself until I looked it up later. The voice did sound a little weird, but a lot of the duties are relegated to Kristen Wiig's character, who gets an excellent bump up because of that, and we get to see a little bit more of Kristen Wiig's character, which is awesome because Kristen Wiig pulls through and is really, really funny in this one. Jay Baruchel's narration, of course, is again awesome. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie, but it's also one of the weirder parts of the movie. I think Jay Baruchel's narrative tone is very interesting, especially when voice acting. I find it a little melodramatic, but in the narration, I find it very interesting, kind of spot on. So I think the series overall is a little heavy on the narration, a little heavy-handed, but it is for children, so of course it has to be to drive some of those things home. So it's a great film, not too heavy emotionally for your kids. There are some intense battle scenes, but they're kept light. They kind of have a Hobbit feel, if you remember the barrel scene in the first Hobbit film. So a little bit violent, but no gore, nothing like that, no one being dismembered. Nothing like that. There is one dragon death. If your kids are sensitive to that, you might want to be aware that that's coming. But that's pretty much it for How to Train Your Dragon 3. Great for families, great for fans of the franchise. If you're looking for a little bit more highbrow of a kid's film, this probably wouldn't be be the one for you. It's not a Miyazaki film. It's not Toy Story. It's not Inside Out. But it is great if you like the Incredibles films, if you like the previous How to Train Your Dragon films, or anything in between. All right, so thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.